Hi everyone, so I'm going to be going over 3 factoring problems to help you review factoring, and after you've seen this video you should be able to do some problems on your own. So for example number 1, I have x squared plus 7x plus 12. So in order to factor, the most important thing you need to remember is that we are looking for two numbers that multiply to the number at the end, which is 12, and add to the number in the middle, which is 7. So again, we're looking for two numbers that multiply to 12 and add to 7. And I got those numbers from my equation. So my number at the end, the constant, is the number we're multiplying to, and the number in the middle with x is the number we're adding to. So in order to figure this out, I need to list all of the factors of 12. So I always start with the easiest factors for any number is 1 times that number. Then I move on to 2, and I think if 2 goes into 12, and since 12 is even, I know 2 does go into 12. 12 is 2 times 6. And then I move on to 3, and I know that 12 is 3 times 4. And since the next number we would check as 4, and we already have 4, that means we have all the factors. And if you want, you can always use a calculator to double check or figure out each of the factors. So I can always do 12 divided by 2, and then I'll see that the answer is 6, so that's how you get 2 times 6. And then you can check 12 divided by 3, and you get 4, so that's how you get 3 times 4. So if you need a calculator for that, that's fine. If not, great. So now I need to pick which of these factors adds to 7. Now, since I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to positive 12 and add to positive 7, I know that my two numbers are positive, so that's good. So I can look at 1 and 12. Well, 1 and 12 would add to 13, so that can't be it. 2 and 6 would add to 8. That doesn't work. 3 and 4 would add to 7. So that means 3 and 4 are the numbers we're looking for. So that means my answer is x plus 3 times x plus 4. So when we factor, we always put the x in front of both parentheses, and then we put the two numbers we found at the end of both sets of parentheses. So x plus 3 and x plus 4. Again, the plus signs come because we know that 3 and 4 have to be positive. All right, let's try another one. So here we're going to add some negatives in. We have x squared minus x minus 30. So again, I'm looking for what multiplies to negative 30 and adds to, you might be wondering what this number is because it's just a negative sign. Of course, this is a negative 1 right here in front of x. So I'm looking for what multiplies to negative 30 and adds to negative 1. So I'm going to make my multiply and add chart again. So I need to multiply to negative 30 and add to negative 1. So now I'm going to have to list all the factors of 30. So I start with 1 times 30. Then I go on to 2. If you're not sure, we can say, okay, let's do 30 divided by 2. That's 15, so that means 2 times 15. I can try 3 next. 30 divided by 3, that's 10, so I have 3 times 10. I can try 4. 30 divided by 4 gives me 7.5, so that doesn't work. I need a whole number. I can try 5. 30 divided by 5, that's 6, so 5 times 6. And the next number I would check is 6, and since that's already in my chart, that means I'm done. So now I just need to figure out which of these would add to negative 1. Well, first of all, I know I'm multiplying to a negative and adding to a negative. So one of my factors has to have a negative sign, and then the other one has to have a positive sign. The only way you can get a negative is if you multiply a negative times a positive. That gives you a negative. So that means I'm looking which of these pairs of factors has a difference of 1, because again, that's what I'm adding to, negative 1. So which of these pairs is 1 apart? That's what I want to ask myself. 1 and 30, those are 29 apart, so those can't be right. 2 and 15, those are 13 apart, so that can't be right. 3 and 10 are 7 apart. That can't be right. 5 and 6, those are exactly 1 apart. So that means 5 and 6 have to be my pair, but I have to figure out which one is negative. So if I'm adding to -1, if the number I'm adding to is negative, then the bigger number in the factor pair needs to be negative. So that means 6 needs to be negative. Again, the reason for that is I'm adding to a negative, so the bigger number has to be negative. Okay, so we have +5 and -6. So that means our answer is x plus 5 times x minus 6. All right, last example. This one is a little bit different because we have a 5 in front of the x squared. And in the last two examples, we did not have a number in front of x squared. So this takes a couple extra steps. So the first step, because we have this 5 in front, is we need to take 5 and 9 and multiply them. So whenever we have a number in front of x squared, we take it and multiply it by the constant at the end. So 5 times 9, if you need a calculator, that's fine. It gives you 45. So that means that the number I'm multiplying to is 45. And the number I'm adding to is -18, still the number in the middle. So again, for this, you're not just multiplying to the number at the end, you're multiplying to the 5 times 9, which is 45. So now I have to find all my factors of 45. Well, I know I have 1 times 45. Now I want to think, does 2 go into 45? You can always check. Put it over here. 45 divided by 2, that doesn't work. I can try 3. 45 divided by 3, that's 15. So I have 3 times 15. 45 divided by 4, that doesn't work. 45 divided by 5, 45 divided by 5 is 9. I already know that because I multiplied 5 times 9 to get 45. Try 6. 45 divided by 6, that doesn't work. 45 divided by 7, that doesn't work. 45 divided by 8, that doesn't work. And then I get back to 9, which I already have. So that means those are all my factors. All right, we don't need the calculator. All right, so now I have to figure out which of my factors will add to -18. So this time I'm multiplying to a positive and adding to a negative. In order to multiply to a positive, I can either have 2 positives or 2 negatives. But since I'm adding to a negative, that means I need to have 2 negatives. 2 negatives multiplied to a positive. So that means whatever I pick, both of them are going to have to be negative. So now I look at these and I think, which would add to -18? -1 and -45, that would add to -46. -3 and -15, those would add to -18. So those are my factors. Now remember, this is a little different because we have this 5 in front. So when we set up our factors, instead of just putting an x in front, we're going to put 5x in front. All right, and then we're going to put the two numbers we just picked, -3 and -15, at the end of each parenthesis. So again, the 5x goes in at the beginning of both parentheses because we don't know yet where it should go. So the last step here is we have to divide by the greatest common factor. So if I look at 5 and 3, I need to figure out in my first set of parentheses, 5 and 3, what is the greatest common factor of 5 and 3? So like, what's the biggest number that goes into both? Well, 3 doesn't go into 5, 2 doesn't go into 3 or 5, so it has to be 1. So I'm going to divide that one by 1. And then over here, what's the greatest common factor of 5 and 15? Well, if I can start with 5 and think, does 5 go into 15? It does. 5 times 3 is 15. And then obviously 5 goes into 5. So that means the greatest common factor of these is 5. So now I can write my answer by dividing everything. So 5x minus 3 divided by 1 is just going to give me 5x minus 3 again. Whenever you divide something by 1, it doesn't change what you have. Over here, 5x divided by 5 leaves us with 1x, or just x. And -15 divided by 5 leaves us with -3. So that's a review of how to factor. I hope that helped, and good luck.